Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to have a look once again at the suggestions passed to developers for August of 2025. This one, we're going to mix some planes and some tanks together because, well, we have a little bit of the rest to have a look at. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe and also like the video. Let's get started. The first vehicle is an Australian one which I would love to see. It is the CAC CA-15 Kangaroo. In November of 1942, an order for the R2600 engine boomerang was rescinded in the following February and replaced with an order for a completely new aircraft. At the time, it was intended that the single-speed, single-stage turbocharged R2800-21 engine should be fitted, with alternate versions with the 43 and the 21 or the 25 having been considered and also rejected. After a visit to the US in early 1943, Lawrence Wackett suggested the P-51D Mustang be adopted by use by the RAAF. Plans changed from the high-altitude emergency-designed fighter to a low-altitude fighter to avoid competition with the P-51D. As a result, the R2800-21 engine was replaced by a supercharged, water-injected R2800-10W. In August of 1943, RAAF specifications 243 was written around the revised design. It called for the design and construction of a prototype single-engine medium-altitude fighter by the Commonwealth Aircraft Corporation and referred to as Model CA-15. In charge of the designs were Lawrence Wackett and Fred David. Fred David was an Austrian Jew who had previous experience working for Heinkel, Mitsubishi, and also Aichi, working on designs such as the A5M and the D3A. As a result, early designs shared similarities with these designs, and also the HE100. Eventually, plans were refined into and aircraft loosely based off the Focke-Wulf 190 with an R2800 10W engine. The initial approval of design included an allocation of £50,000 for development purposes and the same amount again for materials and equipment after production approval had been given. In May of 1944, CAC learned that the R2800 10W engine was out of production and thus no longer available. By this point, a full-scale mock-up was already being produced. The specification was changed to include the turbocharged R2800 57W, and the design was redesigned to include its turbocharger. This again changed the layout, and in August of 1944, CAC was once again informed that the engine could not be guaranteed, resulting in another redesign. And then in September, the aircraft was redesigned to incorporate the Rolls-Royce Griffon 125 engine. This was a substantial redesign, which gave the CA-15 its Mustang-like appearance, with its inline engine and underslung radiator. Despite its superficial resemblance, the aircraft were quite different, the CA-15 being much larger and also designed from scratch. The CA-15 did use the 10-spoke main undercarriage wheels of the P-51D, however the tail wheel and its retraction mechanism were also used in the Hawker Tempest, so to call this an Australian P-51D is completely incorrect. In fact, the aircraft is more similar to the MB-5. This, however, was not the end of CAC's woes. On the 21st of September 1944, the project was cancelled by the War Cabinet, and the RAAF lost interest. It was becoming obvious that the jet aircraft appearing in Europe would be the future in aerial warfare, and this, however, upset those involved in the air industry, as the local air industry seek projects to expand Australia's aircraft manufacturing capabilities. On the 11th of October 1944, a case for reinstatement was submitted by Senator Cameron to the Prime Minister. Faced with this pressure, the War Cabinet revised its decision and reversed its decision on the 7th of December 1944, subject to ratification by the Aircraft Advisory Committee. This did not occur until the 25th of January 1945, and another hit came when the Griffon 125 could not be obtained, and two Griffon 61s had to be loaned from Rolls-Royce instead. The aircraft would never fly with the Griffon 125, and as a result, production was delayed and taxiing trials did not begin until the 12th of February 1946, several months since the war had ended. The aircraft made its first flight on the 4th of March 1946 at the hands of Jim Schofield, CAC's test pilot. The landing struts were overpressured, resulting in bouncing while landing, which led to the name Kangaroo. However, this was never formally adopted. On the 27th of June 1946, the CA-15 was handed over to 1APU after making 23 demonstrations and also test flights totaling 16 3/4 hours with CAC. On the 10th of December 1946, a hydraulic failure caused the landing gear to fail, resulting in a gear-up landing at Point Cook. This caused extensive damage, particularly to the propeller, radiator housing, and lower fuselage. Repairs were delayed as an official investigation had to be held, which lasted until June of 47. The aircraft would not return to the ARDU until May of 48, and the repairs were slow, taking 1,700 man-hours and costing £5,540. And also, by this point, the de Havilland Vampire was entering service with the RAAF, and the P-51D was in production, sealing the fate of the CA-15. And on the 25th of May 1948, Flight Lieutenant Lee Archer dived the aircraft, reaching a speed of 502.2 miles per hour over Melbourne. And unfortunately, on the 1st of May 1950, the aircraft was handed to No. 1 Aircraft Depot and converted to components, which marked the end of the road for this beast of an aircraft. For Israel, we have the IAI Kfir RC2. This is basically a reconnaissance version of the Kfir. It was a single-seat model of the Kfir based on the Kfir C2 and used for tactical photo reconnaissance. With the vehicle itself, it has a very long nose because that's basically where all of the internals were for the photo reconnaissance. You can actually see a big schnoz with a big old camera sticking out of it too. This means that it didn't have any guns, so it was very limited in terms of what it had access to. It could still carry the armaments of missiles, but it could not carry any guns. So you could either bring AIM-9Ds, Gs, or Ls on the vehicle, or of course Shafir 2s or Python 3 missiles. It also kept its SBS-200 RWR and also could have 36 countermeasures, but without guns it would be a bit of a tough sell. For Sweden, we have the SCRV FM31. After the First World War, the presence of tanks in modern combat became more and more common. They offered a protected place for soldiers, as well as a great tool for breaking enemy lines. The Swedish army was quick to hop on this new trend of armored vehicles and wanted a tank of their own. And in the 1930s, Sweden commissioned a tank of their own of 3 companies showed interest. These were Bofors, Landsverk, and Mogard Shammer. Mogard Shammer had problems with their lead constructor dying, and Bofors tanks were decided not fit for Swedish conditions, and thus AB Landsverk was chosen to build Sweden's new tank. The first problem that needed to be solved was mobility. Tracks at the time were not great, and the max speed of tracked vehicles was not adequate for Swedish doctrine. It just so happened that in the 1920s, Landsverk had been bought by Germany, and thus they had early German prototypes to base their designs upon. And as it turned out, these German prototypes happened to have the solutions to the mobility problem. The solution is called the wheeled-cum-track type tank. Despite its humorous name, it was quite a simple, ingenious way of solving the issue. Tracked vehicles are slow, wheeled vehicles are fast. So when the tracked vehicle needs to be fast, just give it retractable wheels. This is the Stridsvagn FM31. The FM in the name stands for Forsök Model, which means testing model or prototype. It was a prototype tank that was supposed to be used by the Swedish army. The wheel-cum-track design did manage to increase the tank's mobility on road significantly. However, this added complexity to the vehicle and also extra weight, which they didn't really want, combined with the fact that the tank track technology had advanced significantly during the development, made the wheels on the wheel-cum-track obsolete. In the end, the SCRV FM31 never entered service, and it was only used as a training vehicle for later tanks. We also have another vehicle for Israel. This is the MAR-290 Eshel ha-Yarden. The MAR-290 was a commissioned MLRS by the IDF-GF to the Israeli military industries in 1973. During the Fourth Middle East War, Israel captured a number of BM-24 MLRSs and decided that they needed an MLRS of a similar setup, with the intention of demolishing well-protected buildings from a safe distance. The said weapon that was developed on the M50 chassis, known as the Epit's Copy. This was the first iteration of the NURS 290mm launcher. This was also arguably the first Middle Eastern design of a siege MLRS, which was abandoned by Israel after the 2000s, but was adopted by Iran during the 80s and spread across the Arab world, creating weapons such as the famous Golan 1000 from Syria. With the early success of the Sherman variant of it, they also moved on to making one based off of the Centurion chassis, which had ridiculous firepower. Basically, the firepower that was on board was 4 600kg NURS 290mm rockets mounted on top of the tank, which could be emptied in 10 seconds. The launcher could traverse a full 360 degrees and also elevate between 0 and 60 degrees. They feature the Evri HE frag and the Shaviv cluster warhead. The HE frag being the only plausible weapon for the game, each rocket consists 325 kilos of warhead with an unknown set of explosive filler. Assuming it's TNT, the warhead itself would be 100 to 150 kilos. So basically what you're looking at is a Centurion with 4 insta-delete rockets on it, which will be quite fun. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecovo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.